second important component of the brainstem. So the entire neuroanatomy, doctor, if you understood brainstem, you understood 75% of neuroanatomy, right? So to understand what is the secret that you learned, most important component to understand is you should know the terminology. What is central tegmental tract? What is inferior olivary nucleus? What are they basically doing? 1-2 points about their function. If you know that, you know brainstem. If you know brainstem, you know half the neurology, right? 75% of neuroanatomy. Now, pons. Pons basically contain 3 parts. There is a base of the pons, there is a tegmentum of the pons, and there are some major ascending sensory pathways. There is no tectum for pons. Tectum and tegmentum, both of them are there only for midbrain. So in the base, all the corticobulbar, corticospinal, corticopontine and pontine nuclei, they are all typically located in the base. Then there are some cranial nerve nuclei which are located in the tegmentum, and reticular formation is there throughout the brainstem. So reticular nuclei are also there, and there are some ascending pathways which are coming from the periphery, which are still thirsty to travel up to thalamus. They are passing through the medulla. Now, if you are in the anatomy dissection theatre, where are you? We have the optic nerve, and this is the optic tract. This is the temporal lobe's medial part, which is called Incus. Then these are the mammillary bodies, unforgettable. Why they are important, doctor? Wernicke's Korsakoff psychosis may there is a hemorrhagic necrosis of these mammillary bodies. Then there is a cerebral peduncle in the midbrain, and between the two there is an interpeduncular fossa in the midbrain. Then this beautiful part which controls throughout our life our entire motor output, pons is called the center for efferentiation. Just like thalamus is the center for all afferents to reach. Then we have the medulla. Medulla has a very prominent pyramid and an olive, and this is the area where the cerebellum, see this folia, are you able to appreciate? Folia. So the middle cerebellar peduncle is connecting the pons and the cerebellum. Right, doctor? Now let us talk about pons. Pons is connected to the cerebellum with by the middle cerebellar peduncle. Pons is typically having the auditory relay nuclei and the vestibular nuclei. Basically, vestibular nuclei are the pontine structures extending into the rostral part of medulla. So it is your choice to learn about the vestibular nuclei, either a part of the pons or as a part of the medulla, whatever. Vestibular nuclei are very important because they maintain the posture, and the vestibulo-ocular nucleus reflexes, because vestibular nuclei are connected to the MLF with the ocular nuclei. That's the reason. Then the facial nucleus is a very, very important structure. Are you able to appreciate this? Is the facial nucleus, and these are the vestibular nuclei. We are in the level of the pons, and this is the absent nucleus. And how is this seventh cranial nerve fibers are coming out, doctor? They are leaving the seventh cranial nerve nucleus and passing in a circumlocutus manner. They are going around, they are making a one projection around what? Absent nucleus. Just like in temple we make around Navagrahas. Then it is coming out. So this is the typical structure which we need to remember. Seventh cranial nerve ultimately innervates the muscles of the facial expression. Then in the mid-pons, we have a very important, this is the cut section, the mid-pontine level, middle of the pons. We have a trigeminal motor nucleus. And why it is important? Because its axons will ultimately go and innervate the muscles of mastication. If you want to bite the subject, who should cooperate? Your trigeminal motor nucleus, which is located in the mid-pontine level. Then, there's a very important center of lateral gauge. You have the sixth cranial nerve nucleus, no? So, sixth cranial nerve nucleus is there, no? Abducens nucleus. Around that you have reticular formation in the pons, which is called peripontine reticular formation. This is the place where the center for lateral gaze is located. And pons also mainly gives rise to 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th. Then, what are the various ascending, descending, and cranial nerve nuclei? That's how we approach each of these parts of the brainstem. Ascending, already we discussed sufficiently in the medulla itself. Okay. We have a dorsal and ventral cochlear nuclei. Cochlear is for hearing, vestibular is for balance. So this cochlear nuclei is receiving the information which is coming from the cochlear branch of the 8th cranial nerve. So that sound perception which we are listening are called which kind of fibers? Special sensory afferents they are called as. Because audition to listen is, hearing is a special sense. And we are getting a afferent, hence special sensory afferent is passing to the cochlear branch of the cranial nerve 8. So what are these cochlear nuclei basically are? They are the auditory relay nuclei which are located in the pons. And what will they do? This cochlear nuclei will be giving rise to both the ipsilateral lateral lemniscus and also the fibers go contralaterally and give rise to contralateral lateral lemniscus also. So both the fibers will be originating from the cochlear nucleus, but predominantly where will the fibers will be going to? Contralateral lateral lemniscus, and they will be going up, right? Then these fibers are decussating from one side to the other side of the pons. Obviously, while they are decussating, they form what is called as trapezoid body, right? So we have dorsal and ventral cochlear nuclei, no? So only the ventral cochlear nuclei decussating fibers will form what is called as a trapezoid body, right? And trapezoid body also contains some other fibers also, but don't remember about the other fibers, that is not important, but mainly you need to remember they contain the decussating ventral cochlear nuclear fibers which are going to the opposite side to form the lateral lemniscus. Then there is one very important nucleus which is located in the pons. It is called as superior olivary nucleus. Now tell me, doctor, where is inferior olivary nucleus? It is in medulla. There is nothing to do with audition, vision or anything. Its job is basically what? Inferior olivary nucleus. Front office receptionist job in the hotel. Sir, आपके लिए ये लोग जा रहे हैं. So that is the job of inferior olivary nucleus. It receives information from the spinal cord everywhere and keep informing to the cerebellum. And boss, red nucleus, will be talking to it what is happening in the front office. That is the job of inferior olivary nucleus. What is superior olivary nucleus? It is associated with the auditory system. So typically it is the auditory relay nucleus which is there at the level of the trapezoid body sitting in the pons, and it receives the input from the cochlear nuclei, and it typically contributes bilaterally to the lateral lemnisci, ipsilateral and also bilateral. Then what is lateral lemniscus? Typically it is a pontine auditory pathway. From where to where it will extend? From the trapezoid body until inferior colliculus in the midbrain. Typically it is extending. And what does it basically contain? The input it received from the cochlea through superior olivary nucleus is contained in the lateral lemniscus, and its ultimate destination is to reach the midbrain's inferior colliculus. Right, doctor? So let's look into, you have the dorsal and ventral cochlear nuclei. Then the ventral cochlear nuclei will typically be giving rise to the fibers which will be reaching the superior olivary nucleus, from where the lateral lemniscus will be originating, and lateral lemniscus will ultimately be reaching the which colliculus, doctor? Superior colliculus, right? Oh, sorry, inferior colliculus, because superior colliculus is with the vision, inferior colliculus is with the audition. So it will be reaching the inferior colliculus, and from inferior colliculus the fibers will be reaching the medial geniculate body in the thalamus. From medial geniculate body the fibers will ultimately go to the auditory cortex. So that is the typical path. Summarize. Audition comes to the cochlear nuclei through the cochlear nerve of the vestibulocochlear nerve, 8th nerve. From cochlear nuclei through the superior olivary nucleus, through the lateral lemniscus, it will be reaching the inferior colliculus, and ultimately it will be reaching the medial geniculate body. Inferior colliculus is at the level of the midbrain. It will be reaching the medial geniculate body in the thalamus, and from the medial geniculate body it will be ultimately reaching the auditory cortex, is what need to be remembered. So what is medial lemniscus? So that is the lateral lemniscus. Story is over. Lateral lemniscus, medial geniculate body, inferior colliculus, then superior olivary nucleus, and the dorsal and ventral cochlear nuclei, and trapezoid body. These are the buzzwords you need to remember when it comes to auditory pathway. Now, what else is there in the pons if you take a cut section? All the remaining ascending sensory pathways. Medial lemniscus, what is it doing? Contralateral dorsal columns are reaching the medulla, and from there they are decussating to the internal arcuate fibers and going up as medial lemniscus. That medial lemniscus which is traveling towards the thalamus. If you take a cut section, so where is medial longitudinal medial lemniscus, doctor? See, this is the cut section. In the cut section, this is the medial longitudinal fasciculus. Why? Because it connects 3rd, 4th, 6th. So starting at the pons level, it has to go until midbrain level, because 3rd cranial nucleus is located in the midbrain, 6th is located in the pons, hence it will be found at both pontine level and also at midbrain level. What else do you have? You have a lateral lemniscus. It is the one which is carrying the auditory pathway. Then what else do you have? You have one superior cerebellar peduncle fibers. Why? Superior cerebellar peduncle is typically found at the level of, is connecting the midbrain and also pons with cerebellum. Middle cerebellar peduncle is only to the pons. So there is a reason you also found superior cerebellar peduncle fibers in this cut section. What else do you have? You have a central tegmental bundle or tract. What is it doing? It is connecting red nucleus in the midbrain and the inferior olivary nucleus in the medulla. Hence, it is passing through the pons. Hence, in a cut section, don't you find central tegmental tract? Yes, we find. Then we have one medial lemniscus, which is carrying the dorsal column sensations to the thalamus, right? So, hence you find it. Then what else do you have? You have the pyramidal tract, which is a descending tract. So, this is the typical cut section. Now, doctor, we have the as usually spinal lemniscus. What does it contain? The anterolateral spinothalamic tract and spinotectal tract are bringing the pain and temperature from the opposite side. No. Ultimately, they have to reach thalamus. Thalamus means they need to pass through the medulla, through the brain, pons, through the midbrain, and ultimately go to thalamus. Hence, if you take a cut section, you will find spinal lemniscus, just like in medulla. Then what are the descending motor pathways in the pons? We have the pyramidal tract. You agree with that? Then we have a corticobulbar tract. Very important. What is this? Just like the Anderson cells in the spinal cord are controlled by corticospinal tract, we have a corticobulbar tract which will be coming down and controlling the cranial nerve nuclei. So this corticobulbar tract will be ultimately innervating the midbrain, pons, medulla, because cranial nerve nuclei are located in all these locations, right? But will it control all the motor nuclei? No, sir. It won't control the cranial nerve nuclei supplying the oculomotor, extraocular muscles. That is, cranial nerve 3, 4 and 6 are not under the control of the corticobulbar tract, but 5th, 6th, 5th, 7th, 9th, 10th, they are all under the control of the corticobulbar tract, right? So it will be leaving fibers in the midbrain, pons and medulla, and ultimately will be controlling the cranial nerve nuclei in all these locations. Then, what are the various cerebellar relay nuclei which are located in the pons? There is one central tegmental tract, we said, no? So it extends from the midbrain at red nucleus level until inferolivary nucleus, and it contains the rubro-olivary fibers, and also it contains, from the reticular formation of the brainstem, fibers will be ascending and going to thalamus. So those reticulothalamic fibers going up and the rubro-olivary fibers descending down, both of them are the parts of the central tegmental tract, which is typically found in the cut section of the pons.